On a radiant spring Sunday, a trio of lifelong friends gathered on a narrow road in Utah. Jerry, Bill, and Arthur, high school buddies and still rooted in their hometown, arrived one after the other in their pickup trucks. They greeted each other warmly with embraces, unloading their gear as they made their way down towards the nearby creek. Fishing at this creek had become a cherished ritual for them, a time to reconnect, unwind, and perhaps catch dinner. Little did they anticipate the unexpected that awaited them that day. The creek lay not far from a highway that now traversed the area, its distant traffic hum audible yet inconsequential to their nostalgia. They had frequented this spot long before the highway existed, steadfastly refusing to relocate out of sentiment and stubbornness. Setting up their chairs and fishing rods, they bantered and reminisced about days gone by. Their children were grown and scattered across the country now, once a tight-knit clan now dispersed by life's journey. Jerry used to bring his dog Mel along on these fishing trips. Her recent passing weighed heavily on him, especially on days like today. Though he received updates from his children, knowing they were doing well, the absence of Mel, who had been his wife's constant companion during her battle with cancer earlier in the year, left a profound void in his heart. These fishing expeditions eased Jerry's loneliness. At his age, making new friends was challenging, so he cherished the camaraderie with Bill and Arthur. They often reminisced about Mel, his late dog, recalling how she would playfully disrupt their fishing trips by leaping into the creek, scaring away any potential catches. "Hey, we're trying to fish here, Mel," Jerry would playfully scold, though Mel's love for swimming always prevailed. This time, with Mel absent, they had no dog to blame for their lack of success. Jerry unpacked a large cooler, a birthday gift from his late wife, filled with bait, drinks, and supplies. They settled down with their fishing rods, enjoying the serene day together. As hours passed without any bites, they didn't mind, content simply to be in each other's company. Just as they began to relax, a sudden commotion from the nearby highway startled them. One of the men gasped, witnessing cars swerving wildly, narrowly avoiding a collision with two semi-trucks. Something had crossed the road, though too distant to identify. Amid honking horns and distant shouts, rustling in the nearby bushes caught their attention. Whatever had crossed the highway was now approaching them rapidly. The three men exchanged tense glances, their curiosity tinged with apprehension. The bushes swayed vigorously, accompanied by a faint, high-pitched noise that hinted at a wild creature's approach. "What's that?" Arthur exclaimed, edging back cautiously in his chair. Considering the chaotic traffic, it could only be something substantial. They knew bears roamed the forest near the highway, which usually made them feel safe in this spot. But if a bear had ventured this far, the fishermen realized they were in potential danger. They instinctively prepared to flee, knowing from past camping experiences that confronting a hungry wild bear was a risk they couldn't afford to take. Just then, a figure darted out from the dense greenery and onto the damp creek bed. It wasn't a bear or any large animal. Instead, it was tiny. A little kitten with a bushy tail, soft gray fur, and big, curious eyes. As it emerged from the tall grass, the kitten slowed to a stop, approaching their fishing spot cautiously. The men sighed in relief at the harmless sight. "Thank goodness," Arthur exclaimed, taking a sip of his beer and relaxing back in his chair. The kitten had somehow crossed the busy road to reach the creek. Without a collar and with slightly scruffy fur, she gingerly approached their campsite, snatched a piece of fish bait with her teeth, and scampered a few yards away, eyes fixed on the men. After gobbling down the bait, she vanished into the shallow water, small but adventurous. Leaning forward in their chairs, the men watched anxiously, hoping she would resurface. Suddenly, she burst back into view, sending water splashing everywhere, a small fish dangling from her mouth. "Well, look at that!" Jerry exclaimed, amazed. While they had struggled all day, the kitten effortlessly caught a fish. "She's a natural fisherman's companion," Bill chuckled, impressed by her skills. The kitten returned to play with her newfound friends, darting back to Jerry's cooler box where the fish now lay. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Jerry asked playfully, his grin widening. He'd never considered himself a cat person, but this tiny feline was starting to win him over, especially after gifting him a fish. She curled up in the cooler, content to stay. As the afternoon passed, the men chatted away, nearly forgetting about their tiny visitor until it was time to leave. Packing up their gear, Jerry remembered the kitten still nestled in his cooler. With a sigh and a smile, he hoisted the cooler. "Looks like I've caught the best fish of the day," Jerry chuckled to his friends, who grinned back knowingly. They understood Jerry's loneliness and were glad to see him find unexpected companionship. After bidding farewell and wishing each other well, Jerry lingered a moment longer, savoring the newfound joy of having a small, furry friend waiting at home. As Jerry packed up his gear, preparing to leave, he encountered one last, unexpected surprise. A second tiny gray kitten was sitting by his car tire. When he introduced her to the first kitten, they instantly bonded, playing and cuddling together in the cooler. "Well, looks like you must be sisters," Jerry chuckled to himself, realizing it was a package deal he couldn't resist. Taking them both home, Jerry bathed and groomed them. As he dried their little heads with a towel, they snuggled close, grateful for their new caregiver. Jerry put up posters around town in case someone was missing them, but no one responded. After a week, he took them to the vet, where he used to bring Mel, treated by Dr. Gilligan. To his surprise, he learned that Dr. Gilligan had retired, and his daughter, Sandy, now ran the clinic. "Who do we have here?" Sandy asked warmly when she met Jerry's two new kittens. Jerry hadn't thought about names until then, but he decided on Angler and Fisher, given their fondness for fishing. Sandy and Jerry ended up chatting for nearly an hour, continuing their conversation over dinner the following week. While the fishermen hadn't caught any fish themselves that day, it marked the beginning of a new family for Jerry. From then on, he always brought Angler and Fisher with him on his fishing trips, enjoying their company and the joy they brought into his life.